Yeah. Mr. Tan, continuing my line of questioning of Attorney Fernandez, at what amount would you have been forewarned, should you have been forewarned or alerted by your officers?
As Attorney Fernandez mentioned, Your Honor, we have a 1 billion threshold.
Pesos?
Yes. And most CEOs don't hear anymore about these remittances. Like in the case of RCBC, we probably had 50 remittances of 1 billion or more the past 3 years, and we don't hear about these remittances.
All right.
You know, because most of the time we're either in meetings or out of the country. We only hear about it when there's a problem.
And like in this case, you didn't hear about it, so now you have a problem.
Well, I found out, you know, when it became an issue.
Well, answer my question. You didn't hear about it, and this became a problem. I thought compliance rules meant for you to be adequately forewarned.
No, sir. They raised the issue to me, but, you know, after the funds have left already.
Yeah, but if you had gotten the issue raised before the funds had left,
I will still rely on the inputs from our compliance and our legal department on what we can do, sir.
that doesn't answer my question. What would you do?
Well,
You will pass the decision to them.
Well, we always base our decisions, sir, based on what we can do under the law and our existing policies.
Well, Attorney Fernandez just said that you wouldn't stop it because you're not allowed to stop it under the law.
That's right, sir.
All right.
Yeah.
Would you have picked up the phone and called the central bank governor instead and said, I got a problem?
You're not allowed secrecy.
Well, under bank secrecy, our obligation, sir, is, to file the appropriate STR report and let the AMLC deal with the...
That means a few days delay, like in this case. It took
Well,
you several days to file the suspicious
Under
transaction
AMLC
report.
policies, sir, you're given 10 days to submit that
That's right.
STR report.
That's right.
And under
And by that time, the
regulations-
money is long gone,
Yes, that's the...
as we saw now.
Yeah.
But I'd like to know, based on the practices of RCBC, at what point would you have been alarmed? At what point would your officers have had to go up to the CEO and say, boss, I think you really have to take a look at this?
Well,
What would that amount be?
it's probably when instincts kick in, sir. I don't think it's the amount. They go to us for a business decision from time to time.
Well, in
But-
this case, Mr. Tan, you had 4 accounts, received dormant accounts, absolutely no economic activity, $6 million, $20 million, $25 million, $30 million, totaling $81 million, and they did not go to you and say, Chief, these 4 accounts, all dormant, suddenly received this 1 billion pesos average each.
No, sir, they did not go to
Okay.
me. Because
Should they have gone to you?
No,
well, we have existing...
Miss Macel,
sorry.
We have existing policies and controls, Your Honor, and as CEO, you assume that, their responsibilities are being done.
all right. Now, supposing $100 million each had been deposited into the account, they would not have gone to you?
I think in that case, they would have gone to me. I mean, it's like the difference between lending a 50 million clean loan versus a billion clean loan. Instincts come in.
Ayan. So, meron kang threshold amount. I'm trying to determine what's the threshold amount. You said it's about $22 million. And so, if you had 100 anonymous fake accounts and they each received $22 million or less, it doesn't come to the CEO's attention.
That's why my opinion, Your Honor, thresholds can only give you, a protection at a certain point, because people will find out what your threshold is, and then they will remit below that. I mean, that happened when we started filtering OFW remittances. The limit was 10,000, so some people were remitting 9,000, 10 times or 40 times, right?
That's right.
I think what will really
But we're not talking
You
about
know.
$10,000 here.
what will really catch, dirty money would be, having intelligent systems in your bank, like what you have in global banks today. I mean, even if you have, modern software, you still need instincts to kick in. Your compliance people, your operations people, your sales people, they all have to use their judgment.
If all the other banks have threshold amounts of $1 million, $2.5 million, maximum $5 million, yours was at $22 million, you are way out of line vis-a-vis
Well,
your other peers
Your
in the
Honor, I
banking
think-
community.
I think it depends on the size of your bank. Our total assets as of year end was 530 billion pesos. So, I think 1 billion was a reasonable amount at that time. Now, because of this
Mr.
experience,
Tan, the banks I talked to were all much bigger than RCBC. And they all had threshold amounts of that. $1 million, $2.5 million.
again, Your Honor, it's a balancing act. If you lower the amount, commerce will be affected because some of these remittances are meant to pay certain obligations. Like if you're dealing with the
Only for
capital markets.
RCBC? Only for RCBC? I mean, you were president of the Bankers Association of the Philippines for 2 years, so surely you knew exactly what the other banks also were doing, what their thresholds were.
Unfortunately, Your Honor, we don't share notes on thresholds and things like that. But some banks have similar systems.
Wouldn't the AMLA compliance been one of your concerns as president of the Bankers Association of the Philippines?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right.
And I think RCBC was compliant with AMLA policies. I think what happened here is, some judgment error from the people, on the ground, right? I think if you look at our systems, we have been applying Six Sigma principles in our processes.
Yes.
We have foreign consultants that look at every process of the bank. And we have 16 products that we sell to every consumer and every corporation. Remittance is just one of 16, Your Honor.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, banks have 1,000 processes. If you decide to change the whole kitchen of a bank, you have to go through 1,000 processes, right? And this is one of them. I think what happened here is, we had the IT controls, the human controls, but unfortunately it failed in the end, in the execution.
And it would fail again because as Attorney Fernandez responded, you wouldn't stop the transaction from
this
going
experience is, we have made changes to our present system to prevent this from happening again. And if you ask my opinion, Your Honor, I mean, it can happen again. Philippine banks have to upgrade to cognitive systems. We have to look at our employee behavior, what time they go in, what time they go out, what they do outside. We have to look at transaction behavior. Only computers can do that. Because if you have a bank and you envision to have 20 million, 40 million customers times X number of transactions per second, there's no way you can have human intervention along the way. You must combine
But the other
people and
banks,
IT.
the other banks have human intervention.
Well, Your Honor, it's like a Formula
Not
1 race,
as a
right?
standard, but at a certain level, they have human intervention. Like I said, their threshold amounts are $1 million. Now, since these banks are 10 times bigger than RCBC,
It's balancing
their
cost
volumes are much
efficiency
bigger.
and speed, Your Honor. I mean, in our business, you have to balance cost efficiency, speed, and control, right? I mean, the global banks, they were hit with Bernie Madoff. 4 years they were in the books of the largest U.S. bank, right?
Yes.
Nick Leeson brought down a 100-year-old institution because of poor controls. This happens because, it's just like racing a Formula 1 race. You either invest in a Ferrari or a McLaren and have the best driver to drive it. You need both. We have 6 levels of training program, and yes, we are sorry this happened, but it's human error, human judgment, or
We're trying
it's
to
intentional.
determine. That's precisely we appreciate your comments, and the committee is trying to determine whether human judgment was indeed the main culprit in this case, or the compliance rules of RCBC severely lacking. But tell me something. Again, may dumating na $100 million. One account. No justification, no legal, no trade, no services. Wouldn't that get up to you?
Well, if the systems are working, I mean, given our
we
present
assume
systems,
that they're
Yeah,
working in your
someone
bank. Would it
should-
have reached you?
yeah, give me a chance, Your Honor. Someone should really go down there and ask.
Not
may I
should. I want to ask you, would it have reached your level?
It depends, Your Honor. If it's a multinational company with, that reasonable level of business volume, I don't think it will reach me.
No, if it's a
But if it was,
multinational company and this is in the normal process, I'm Shell Corporation, I have an RCBC account, I normally have transactions in the hundreds of millions of dollars a month, of course it's going to be not. But here I'm talking about a specific situation where it's an inactive or dormant account. It's got $500 in deposit. It suddenly receives $100 million.
well, a perfectly working internal control system, I would hope it really does not need to go to a CEO. The control should kick
No,
in.
you're speaking in hypothetical terms. I'm asking you if $100 million had been deposited to the account of, I'll give you one name, La Grosas, would you have been alerted under your current process?
No, Your Honor.
You would not.
Yes.
$200 million, would you have been alerted?
Well, again, if the people feel that
No, not if. Would you have been alerted under the circumstances?
yeah, there's no policy written that it needs
No,
to go
I'm
to
not
me.
talking
Yeah.
about you're
Yeah.
talking about judgment. You're talking about having trained your people to use their judgment, correct? Because a lot of these are judgment calls. So I'm asking you, what would their judgment be? May dumating $200 million, isang account, $500 on deposit, dormant. Wouldn't I run up to my boss and say, boss, what do I do with this?
Well, I'm hoping that the compliance
No, what-
people and
Would they have
Yeah.
come up to you or not? Don't hope.
I would think that the group head and the compliance people should be able to solve that problem.
Themselves?
Yes, sir.
All right. If the amount were $400 million,
Well, if it's extraordinary or unusual, probably
how extraordinary can that be? How extraordinary do you want it to be?
it's really based on experience, Your Honor. I mean,
Yes,
you
and
know.
so let's be more specific. We're not sophisticated bankers, so we'd like to know what would be that warning sign that would alert your people to tell you that something fantastic is happening.
If it's beyond reason or beyond the
Would
ordinary
you
course of
consider
the
$400 million within reason or beyond reason?
Your Honor, we just raised $400 million last year, right? And since it's going to RCBC, I don't think the banks would question something like that. So, if it's to a Mr. Juan de la Cruz who's a salaried employee, I think, it would raise alarm bells in the bank.
I'm talking about a dormant account with $500 US dollars suddenly receiving $400 million.
Yeah, the appropriate procedures would kick in, Your Honor, the STR report and things like
Yeah,
that.
I know
right?
that,
Yeah.
but you're always talking hypothetically. I'd like you to tell me, would $400 million have alerted your boys to tell you? You take a look at this
I
because
think eventually they will inform me, but I don't think...
eventually,
Yes, I don't think they'll have
if
to
it were
inform me the
$800
same
million,
day. I think 800 is really out of whack, I mean...
you mean it's
they-
impossible?
Well, no, I mean, of course, it will ring major alarm bells, right?
And you would be informed.
I think at the end of the day, they will inform me.
At the end of what day?
At the end of the day, when the remittance came in,
So if the remittance came in at 8 o'clock in the morning, you'll only find out at night.
based on our present systems, yes, sir.
Oh my. Well, at this point, Mr. Chair, with your permission, perhaps you'd like to